Good afternoon, everyone. Oops, I'm back. Hi, everyone. Hi, Vanessa. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
how are you?
Hiya. Thanks for joining. We're going to open with a quick video that we built in the EGC Content Studio, and it's just a nice opener for these sessions. So
Businesses have never been hit harder, but the comeback is always better than the setback. Ready for your comeback? Here's how we can help. Get a free digital audit at egcgroup.com.
So there you go. That's our opener. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We're going to get started, and I'm really lucky today to have Vanessa Conde, a friend and also an EGC client and leader and marketer. And Vanessa, once we go a little bit further, I'm going to talk a little bit more about your background and what you do at Trend. But I'm really pleased that you're here, and we're here really today to talk about consumer trends post-crisis. And I think we all can acknowledge that the country is in a state of crisis, both starting with our pandemic and now in a social crisis. And we've been monitoring really what that has all meant to form consumer behavior and what should brands and organizations be thinking about as we now approach this new phase. So thank you again for joining. I'm going to encourage anyone who has questions for the afternoon for our session together to type them into the Q&A. If you have a question for Vanessa, please feel free to ask it. We will be taking a Q&A at the end of the session. So first, I want to just cite some of where we gathered this data and research from. For I think a few weeks ago, we started publishing and collecting a survey looking at marketer behavior post-COVID and just analyzing, well, how is everyone going to be reacting to this? But we also got some great data and input from the Board of Innovation, Deloitte, and two research platforms, Suzy and Qualtrics. So that's where you're going to see a lot of this data. I wanted to start here because I thought it was a good data point. This was published a week ago, that the personal savings rate, right, meaning what people are saving and putting in their savings account, has gone up to 33%. The average is typically 7%. So what that means, hopefully for all the brands and marketers on the call, that there's going to be a pent-up demand. People are going to be looking to spend that somewhere. And of course, this is tempered with the unemployment numbers and the current state of the economy. But I think it's interesting that people during the pandemic, of course, had nowhere to spend it and put it into savings. And I also thought we'd start with this sentence of, when the world is changing faster than you can blink, and it is, it's more important than ever to understand and listen to your customer. We've been using a research platform, Qualtrics, as a partner to do a lot of that. And it's really never been more important to get a pulse check of where your customer is and how they want you to engage. So we're going to start with trend number one, the low touch consumer. And we know that we are entering a low touch economy. Fears are beginning to ease, right? So when consumers were asked if they felt safe going to a store a month ago, 35% reported that they felt safe. Well, now that number's increased to 47%. So we're seeing an uptick in confidence and secureness in entering a store. But people are still concerned. And what I thought was really interesting is that this low touch economy is everywhere, right? There's never been, I think, in history, something that has such a widespread impact on how we interact with family, how we interact in our offices, social context, right? And concerts, everything's been disrupted, but this low touch economy is going to impact all of it. And 87% of shoppers said that they would prefer, and the actual real answer in terms of how they answer this question, they would choose one store over the other if they had touchless or robust self-checkout options. That's a big number. So it's something that so many retailers have already addressed this, and it's not going to go away. But I think it's important that everyone rethinks this entire experience. And it's going to define our lives for years to come. And Vanessa, when we get to you, I'm going to talk about how you guys and your franchisees have adapted for this low-touch economy. And what we're also seeing from this, new normal is traditional retailers, the big boys in retail, are really in peril. I thought this statistic was worth sharing because I saw it and I thought it was really interesting that the US has 24 square feet of retail space per person. So for every single individual in the US, there is 24 square feet of retail space. That's, for some context, 250 times the amount of retail space per person to Australia. So we have a lot of retail space, right? And I think we're going to see you're going to see some significant changes there. You're continuing to see a lot of empty spaces, a lot of leasing space. There's going to be a shift in what that space is used for, and in large part, it's because of this new low-touch economy. Over the past few weeks, I actually think since we last did this session, some of this is new, right? So retailers like J.Crew, JCPenney, Men's Warehouse, specialty retailers, and Neiman Marcus, all in a Chapter 11 process. And I don't say this to depress anyone. I say it because it expedites the need for digital transformation. And a lot of these brands, if you look at it, were brands that were behind the curve in that process. And what we also saw, that the pandemic was an accelerator for retailers that were in trouble to begin with, and then it expedited what is their demise. So I have much better news as I go along. But really, the opportunity here, and the opportunity with consumers who want a touchless model, is the shift of what the experience will be like. And what we're seeing is, and what I think we can predict, is a lot of retail shift to what is like a showroom model. So having a physical space where you can understand the brand, understand the product, but a lot of transactions are done online. We see this with Tesla, right? So Tesla had moved all their sales online. You can still go into a showroom and you can see what the car's about, but ultimately all the transaction service and buying the car is done online. And I think we're going to see a lot of movement in that direction, especially in the automotive category. So in addition to what might have been obvious, right, low touch, but what that means for retail and customers, we're also seeing this second trend of a very high, fast adoption rate of new technology, especially in health and wellness. I think all of you on the call, if you have a aged parent or grandparent, they likely have been communicating with you in Zoom or FaceTime and never have before. I Zoomed with our 97-year-old grandfather, and they had to pick it up, right? So the adoption rate of new technology on the consumer side is much, much higher. When you look at, and I thought this was interesting, this is the adoption curve typically of technology. And in this one, we're looking at mental health apps. The adoption rate and the curve just went like this when it would typically go like this. So I really think for brands and marketers on the call, and Vanessa, I know you guys are already all over this, it's the time to introduce new technologies to customers because they're way quicker at adapting to it and making it part of their life. And third trend, we're finding consumers more connected to brands. The emotional connection that a consumer has to a brand, to an organization, is deeper. And we're also seeing in this environment that 85% of consumers will shift brand loyalties that to a brand or organization that has a purpose, a mission, and is giving back to the world. This is important to people. This is up from 70% last year. And a lot of that has to do with what's happening outside. And they want to understand what the brand stands for. And it's honestly never been more important because this is a real number, 85% of consumers. I wanted to take those three trends and use a quick case study of Panera. So how have they taken these three data points and used that to their advantage at this time? Well, one, low touch distribution. They, introduced curbside pickup. They partnered, they already offered some Grubhub type of service, but added on to that service. Then increase in health and safety, right? So they changed their menu to be more focused on health and wellness. They do the safety protocols of temperature checks for employees, of course. They redesigned their stores. But they actually launched a new business in this time where they're now delivering basic groceries, produce, bread, bagels, as home delivery. And that was brand new. And it's something that their CEO thinks that they'll be doing in the future. And they also back that with a purpose, and they're providing 500,000 meals to children and families that are sheltering in place. So they're wrapping all of those consumer trends and wants together into this new offering. So I thought that was a really interesting case study. And then next, we want to share some results from our survey. How are marketers reacting to all of this that are not Panera, right? How are maybe small to mid-sized business and middle market brand reacting, synthesizing all of these key trends, and how are they changing? Well, when we asked how many would be adopting a new messaging for this new consumer, almost 70% they said they are or plan to. And I thought that was, I was happy to see that people are taking this seriously and relooking at how they speak as a brand and relooking at their content and relooking at their messaging. Also, when you look at a word cloud of what your biggest marketing need, I think everyone can see the word is digital. Digital transformation has been the key thread for every client and every marketer we deal with and everyone we read about. This has been an accelerator for that process. So this is probably not new information, but I think the scope of it has surprised even us of how many people are just completely B2B business, taking their business B2C, complete revamp of new digital platforms in ways that they're connecting with customers. So I now want to move this to Vanessa, so it's not all me speaking. So thanks, Vanessa. We've worked together in a lot of this capacity, right, in messaging strategies and digital, but I'd love you to introduce yourself and your role and tell us a little bit, give us a little bit of context, maybe from a point of, what the pandemic journey was like for you, for your team, and for your franchise community and your customers.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here chatting with you today. I am the global vice president of a global integrated, vertically integrated company called Trend Group that has a franchise system both in the United States and in the UK, as well as other offices throughout the world, in Dubai, in Australia, in Italy. So my marketing team supports both sides of the business. We work with the Trend Group, which is an organization that predominantly sells, mosaics for commercial projects. The franchise system side of the business focuses on the home remodeling space, so kitchen and bath remodeling, and that's what we work closely with with EGC as our agency of record, to support a franchise system that has about 50 franchise locations in the United States, and then separately in the UK, we have upwards of 60. So my department is very busy. We do a lot to support all of those different arms of the company. You know, from our experience in the United States with the pandemic, it was a bit of a roller coaster ride. I would say I've never worked so hard in my life. Working from home was quite the experience, but you know, as an organization with our leadership and with my team members, we really banded together quickly, efficiently, and all hands on deck, basically, to make sure that we were developing the right processes, tools, and protocol for our franchise system, particularly who were challenged by this pandemic because the model relies on an in-home design consultation, right? So imagine where we're going into a shelter-in-place scenario where people don't want you in their homes. So what did that mean? We had to really think quickly on our feet before we went to shelter-in-place here in Florida, where our corporate office is for the franchise system, which is led by Rock Solid Granite, is the name of the franchise system. And while we were getting the news of what was about to come, you know, Charlotte Russell, who's the head of our organization, our CEO, quickly said, you know, all hands on deck, let's start calling our franchisees, see what's going on in their respective markets, and start putting a preparedness program in place. Because even though the effects of the pandemic was hitting the country in waves, we had to, as you do in franchising, right? Whatever you do when you're creating processes and systems for franchising, you have to think down the line, because you have to think about things in scale, how they scale to support not just the first franchisee, but the 50th one down the line, right? So we did that. We did an audit of the system, and we were surprised because some of them were like, what are you talking about? We haven't heard of anything yet. They were completely unaffected at that particular time. And then there were others that were quite concerned because we had one, particularly in what we call Ground Zero, whose franchise location was in Washington State, basically just a couple of miles away from where the pandemic began. So,
Wow.
yeah, it put us in a situation where we had, you know, kind of go into kind of triage mode right away, even before anything fully took effect, so that we made sure that our franchisees were going to be able to benefit from any of the support that the government was putting in place with funding, that they were well equipped with the processes to make sure that internally their teams were safe, and that they were implementing a protocol to maintain the health of their staff, and that because of our in-home design consultation process, that they were prepared to deal with what was going to come from customers, either not wanting them in the home or wanting them to come into the home quickly before shelter-in-place took hold of their community, so that they can get that kitchen or bathroom remodeled very quickly. Right? But we still wanted to be able to provide them with the comfort of knowing that, that the franchisees, staff members were going into the home with their well-being in mind. So it was incredible how quickly all of these things came into play. And I think it was within 2 or 3 days, we had a fully integrated preparedness deck in place and rolled out to the system that included their feedback initially, because we had called them all individually first, and then every department head member and their supporting staff was involved to make sure that we were executing a preparedness program that covered all the bases. So
Wow.
it was quite a ride.
Wow. And you know, we talk about this low touch economy. How do you see that impacting how you work going forward, and what the franchise experience is like, and how are you preparing for that?
You know, so we were there were two things that were happening before the pandemic hit that was to our benefit. We were, I have to say, really lucky, unbelievably lucky. We had just rolled out a what we call a visualizer. We had partnered with a company called Quote Countertops, and they customized their visualizer tool for our brand. And we had literally just put that up on our website where customers can go and in a digital environment online be able to create their desired kitchen or bathroom design using the tool and our product. So our product in a visual standpoint was implemented into that tool so that you can actually see what your kitchen would look like with any of our engineered stone countertop colors, our cabinet refacing colors, and then you can use the countertop material. Our engineered stone is for walls and floors, whatever. So you could play with the tool and basically create your desired kitchen or bathroom. So that had already launched, and then came the pandemic, and then everyone went into shelter in place. So what happened? We had to shift our focus very quickly and start talking to our franchisees about how do we bring this in-home design consultation now that you are not able to perform, and still keep customers engaged enough to at least get them far along through the journey so that you built a relationship with them, right? Even if it's not a face-to-face relationship, but it's a virtual relationship where they can get to know you, get to know the product, understand our process, and hopefully either seal the deal, through that methodology, or stay engaged long enough to wait until we come out of this and we can get back in the home. Mm-hmm. So the visualizer, together with a virtual design consultation that then we reacted very quickly to engage the franchisees to, together with them, build what that virtual design consultation would look like, or, based on their input, bringing in their real life experiences, learning from them about how the design consultation happens in the home so that we can make sure that the virtual experience reflected that. Right. And the virtual design consultation then became robust in the sense that with the visualizer tool, it allows the entire customer experience to happen in a digital space, almost completely mimicking the in-home design consultation, just not in the home.
Right, great.
So it was great.
That's terrific. And so let's talk about going forward. We saw that consumers want to hear from the brand and who you are and what you stand for, and they want these additional digital touch points. Do you see the brand evolving, and how are you kind of shifting, how are you handling your messaging going forward and your digital strategy? Talk to us a little bit about your pathway forward in terms of digital.
So we do quarterly marketing calls with our franchisees, and aside from webinars that we host for the group, all together, the quarterly calls gave us an opportunity to really dig a little deeper, give our franchisees really hands-on support in their marketing. And one of the first things that we always counseled them on or trained them on was this idea of starting to move more of their budget into the digital space. And that really depends on the market too, right? So you have to be flexible in that, because some markets are smaller towns that still rely either on print or other types of mediums because they haven't really caught on to digital all the way, like a major market like, let's say, New York City. So, but regardless, the idea was always to nurture franchisees to start thinking more about their world from a digital perspective, because that's where the world has gone, right? That's where we continue to move. Technology is taking over each and every day. And so as we look forward past the pandemic, it isn't so different than what we were already advising our franchisees to do, which was to make sure they were implementing email marketing. That was one of the things when I came on board with this company a couple of years ago, that I was surprised to see that a lot of franchisees, and again, it depended on where they lived in the world, right, or in the country, didn't do some of the basic, what I thought was basic digital marketing. Email marketing, hands down, one of the more basic, right? So, you know, encouraging them to make sure that they implemented email marketing programs. The least you could do is, and the most affordable thing that you can do from a digital marketing standpoint, is communicate to your database regularly. I mean, you don't even really need an agency to do that. If you have a team like we do from the franchisor side of it that supports our franchisees, guiding you through this process, email marketing is a pretty easy thing to implement, right? An affordable way to keep communicating. Now, where it gets more complicated is developing the content strategy, making sure that they're using best practices when they're engaging in email marketing, and all of that is a learning curve, and we do that together with EGC, you know, supporting us on best practices, right? And we roll that down to the system. But that was sort of always what we were doing, and we encouraged them to do more, shift more of their budget towards digital, have more conversations with their customers about the digital tools that are available to them, like the virtual, like the visualizer and the virtual design consultation. The virtual design consultation came into play to remedy the issue that came up because of the shelter-in-place and pandemic, but I've instructed my team and EGC to bake that into our new website design. You all are helping us roll out a new website to our system because we want that to always be an option. I think coming out of this pandemic, there will continue to be customers that will slowly come out of it, not necessarily feel comfortable, as you said earlier in your presentation. It'll take them time to get used to feeling good about being out and about or letting strangers in their home. And so I didn't want to remove that option of a virtual design consultation because I think it's a lifeline. We should give them a choice. And that's what we've advised our franchisees to do. Give them that choice, stay educated and on top of digital nuances, and keep moving their marketing budgets and their marketing mix in that way because they have no choice. Really.
Right. So what would you say was one of your biggest learnings, either about your franchisees or about your customers throughout this whole process? What do you know now that you didn't know then?
I know that I can work harder than I ever thought was possible. We all did. I think it's not unique to me. I've heard that from a lot of friends that said they worked from home harder than they ever did in the office. But as a team, I have to say, we really, really banded together. I was so proud to be part of my group, my team, not just my marketing group. I'm talking about our whole company, because everyone jumped in so quickly, pulled together, and through transparency, communication, and using their individual skill sets, really did an amazing job of quickly reacting to the circumstances and putting their best foot forward and coming out with some really great tools and support and processes to help our franchisees. I would say the learning from the customer was that, you know, when they sit at home too long with nothing to do, Lord knows they start hating on their kitchen and bathroom. that job that they wanted to do for months, and they just ignored it because, you know, oh, I'll get to it later as they're off to work or living their lives or taking care of their kids. When they had to live in it 24/7, then all of a sudden that kitchen counter wasn't looking so great anymore. So it's funny how people start to react to, you know, their new normal. And for us, it became a good thing because then, you know, they wanted to come out of this redoing their kitchen or bath, right? So that was good.
We actually talked about that in a previous episode. We talked about the shift of messaging from wants to needs. That and I think a person in that situation who's been working out of their kitchen for 3 months, redesigning their kitchen is no longer a want, it's a need. And
exactly.
I think you're a beneficiary of that. And one other thing I wanted to just touch on, you also, and it's just amazing how the timing of some of the things that you guys were doing timed into what's gone on. But talk to us about microban. And, one of the things that we shared as a trend is a hyper focus on, hygiene and cleanliness. And so talk to us about that product.
Yeah. So Microban, the partnership with Microban, we are an exclusive partner of Microban for a few years, for a good while now. We will be. That the conversation with Microban to talk about this exclusive partnership had just started before the pandemic hit. I mentioned earlier, there were two things that happened just before that for us, we were very lucky. And so we were lucky because the Microban, if you don't know who Microban is, they are an international company that produces what they call a built-in antimicrobial technology. They also have a surface antibacterial technology, which is the technology that you find in like a surface spray, right? Kills on contact, 24 hours, usually have to clean it regularly. But the antimicrobial built-in technology is something different. It actually gets blended into, in our case, our engineered stone. And that technology works 24/7. It kills bacteria all the time. And so the benefit of that is that it works in our surfaces to maintain the surface clean all the time, in between cleanings and ongoing, 24/7 for the life of the product. It also protects the product from degrading, right? And so it keeps it healthier, basically, for a longer period of time, for its lifetime. So what does that mean for us today? It's like, okay, now we have an antimicrobial engineered stone product that is used as an application for countertops, floors, walls, ceilings. It can be used in the home, obviously in the commercial spaces, in hotels, in hospitals, in restaurants. I mean, these are all categories of business that we always went after, but think about now with this added benefit to our already unique product. Our engineered stone already had a number of benefits that made it quite unique and sought after. And now with this added on layer of benefit that really relates to what's happening today, it was a home run. I mean, it was incredible how sort of the stars lined up.
That's amazing. And, when we talk about the comeback and how brands and franchisees and businesses are taking a setback and turning it into a comeback, it's, this is all part of your comeback, right? Having something that is just perfect for this new hygienic environment. I want to talk quickly, and then we're going to turn to Q&A, about just the media mix. And we have been talking a lot of digital, right? And we know the importance, and especially now. But you actually recently won an award for a Telly Award for a campaign, for a TV campaign. And I'm not bringing it up because we produced it, but it's quite good. As Ad Age says, it gives Flo from Progressive a run for her money. And talk to us briefly just about your the concept behind that, and your plans to make that campaign go even further.
Yeah, so the campaign is called Janet from Granite, which EGC produced for us, and we're so proud of that campaign. And as you said, we've won a Telly Award, which we were super excited about. We just, we rolled that campaign out to our United States franchisees, and actually just recently rolled it out to the UK franchisees. All of them equally as excited. They feel like it's just a fresh new approach to our brand and really helps us stand apart from our competition. The great thing about having a brand ambassador that you own, right? This isn't a celebrity brand ambassador. We'll make her a celebrity over time, but a brand ambassador that we own is that she can tell a lot of stories for us, right? And we've already built a campaign where she speaks to different topics in our world. And now you know, she will continue to do so. She'll speak on the microbrand story, and she'll tell the virtual design consultation story as well as the visualizer story. So that's what's so great about that campaign, is that it's so flexible. It allows us to have her speak on our behalf on so many different topics, and we're excited about that. You know, the other thing is that it allows for a really nice marketing mix. We have a Janet from Granite creative asset available for pretty much anything that you would do in a marketing mix, from television to radio, print. We have digital. All of these stories, you know, will be rolled out in all assets so that franchisees can pick and choose what they need depending on what their marketing mix is. Of course, as I said, we're pushing them more for digital, but I feel like the campaign has had a lot of success in television, and they should continue to do television. We had a franchisee just recently in Alabama send us an email, basically her testimonial saying how much she loved Janet. Her customers are getting to know the character. She was able to negotiate better pricing on TV. Instead of going dark on television, she was able to maintain her TV buy. And because she did that during the pandemic, her business grew 24%. And she attributed that to being able to maintain that TV program at a negotiated rate because the stations worked with her, and the Janet character, because customers actually call her and repeat lines that they hear from the commercial. And that's pretty fantastic.
That's awesome. So we're going to turn it to Q&A in a minute, but I want to close with a question. We talked about purpose and customers wanting brand purpose, and also the importance of having a personal purpose. I know we've had the conversation before about the purpose to serve franchisees, right? They're small business owners, independent business owners that keep the economy alive. But what is that? What drives you? What's your purpose? And what would you say the purpose of the organization is?
I think as an organization, I mean, aside from providing customers products that, and this I'm quoting, this is a microbrand line, but I love it. It's providing products that help people worry less and enjoy life more, right? And I think that's a pretty strong statement, a strong line or a tagline in today's environment. You know, our organization, aside from the products that we manufacture, our job is to educate. We're educators. As a franchisor, particularly on the franchise side of the business, the idea is to provide an aspiring entrepreneur a proven model, business model that they can jump into, and with our support, you know, get out of the gate running. And but it's just not that. It's just not giving them the opportunity of a proven model. It's hand-holding them, guiding them, educating them along the way for the lifetime of their business, right? As long as they're in the franchise system. And so for me, I personally get gratification out of being able to constantly keep myself educated, because in the digital space, you're always having to keep ahead of the curve and learn, you know, it changes every day, but also pass down that education to franchisees that are really trying to develop businesses that are, you know, basically part of their legacy, right? What they leave behind to their families, or just what is fulfilling to them as an entrepreneur. And that feels good at the end of the day, to see them be successful because we've educated them to do the right things with their business in the right way.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn it to some questions. I have a question. Would you, what would have happened if you did not have the virtual design? I'm repeating it wrong, but what would happen if you didn't have the virtual options in place? What would be the impact? What would have been the impact on your business?
So I think the visualizer was a supporting tool to the virtual design consultation. We would have proceeded with doing a virtual design consultation. A lot of our competitors did the same thing, you know, or a lot of businesses in general, not just our competitors. We saw that a lot of other businesses were implementing a virtual consultation or touch point with customers just to keep the engagement going. So we would have gone down that route. It just so happened that we had this visualizer tool that rolled out just before the pandemic hit, but it was the visualizer came at the right time. It was something we were thinking about and working on for a long time. It was a tool that in a different iteration had existed in the company years ago. This was just a more modernized version of it. So I think we would have proceeded with the virtual design consultation, and if the visualizer had not yet been launched, we still would have been moving towards the visualizer tool, because in our business, it's a tool that's really relevant regardless of the pandemic. You know, people like to play online, they like to do their own thing even before they make the phone call to find out more. And so the more you give customers a tool to independently get engaged, the better.
And next question is, did you experience issues with your supply chain?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Did you experience issues with your supply chain?
Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm not hearing that.
You know what? Did you experience issues with your supply chain?
Oh, well, so, okay. So I'm assuming that that question probably is coming up because this thought is that the product that we get is probably coming from overseas. You know, I know a lot of businesses were affected when at the beginning of the pandemic, China closed their borders and we weren't, you know, getting product in from China. We didn't have that issue. Because we manufacture here in the United States. Our engineered stone is manufactured actually right here in Sebring, Florida. And so our manufacturing and our supply chain was really not affected at all. It's one of the benefits of being a vertically integrated company. We're self-sufficient and we support our own organization.
Right. Next question. What was the scariest moment for you during the pandemic? I'm not sure if that was meant to be personally, professionally, but tell me a moment that might have shook you.
I think from a professional standpoint, I think it was those first couple of weeks when we went to shelter in place, when I realized how real the situation was. And I kept thinking about our franchisee model, which is that in-home consultation. And even though I knew we had the visualizer and we were moving towards a virtual design consultation, I kept thinking about, but you know, how long is this going to last? How long are we going to be sheltered in place? How long are we going to be able to engage with customers digitally and still do what we do? Well, more importantly, because, okay, so we get them engaged in the virtual design consultation process, but they're still not going to want someone to come into their home and install. And how do we do what we do if we can't go finish the job, go into the home and install the materials to do a new kitchen or a new bathroom? So that's when I kind of get nervous and thought to myself, this whole thing needs to end fairly quickly, because we can get through 50% of it, but then the other 50% is going to have to wait for how long, right? So that's when I got scared.
Okay. So please share one leadership tip, especially for those that are on the session that are in marketing. Share one tip to go forward. What would be your closing tip to everyone that still is navigating through all of this?
I would say transparency and communication are key. In my situation, leading the marketing team in the franchise system, my first goal was to make sure that whatever we did, we included the franchisees in that process, in that concept building process. The virtual design consultation was a perfect example of that. We didn't just come up with a virtual design consultation and push it down and say, this is what you have to do. We actually had a webinar. We had 2 webinars because it was done in 2 stages. We had a webinar where it was the franchisees telling us what they do in design consultations and building that virtual design consultation process with us. That was very key to doing that. Doing that was very key because what it did was it not only engaged them, the franchisee, it made them accountable as well for this particular process and its success. And it made them feel like they were part of the process, not just having something pushed down or shoved down to them and forced to do. And so I feel like from a leadership standpoint, that was a key strategy that got us to have a franchise system that then trusted us, believed in us, and believed that we were working with them, and not only for them, but with them, together with them. So I would say moving forward, that's the key. Never work in a silo. Like, engage your customers. If you're in a franchise system, your franchisees, and whatever you're developing, your teams around you, the other department heads that support what you do. Everything is about communication and transparency and rolling up your sleeves and doing it together.
Great. Well, that is all for today. Thank you so much. This was great. And it was really interesting for me to kind of put all the pieces of all the things that you guys have done, together. You really should be proud, and the organization should be proud. And congrats. And I know there's still lots of work to do, but you've done a great job so far. So thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day. Thank you, everybody.
You as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.